Welcome to the Raw and Real podcast, a space for honest conversations about life in all its messy, beautiful complexity. Here we go deep, exploring the vulnerable, the meaningful, and the moments that truly shape who we are. Nothing's off limits. These are unfiltered conversations about life where we're not afraid of talking about the hard stuff. No masks, no filters, we're just real people with real stories. Let's get into it.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Julie and Sonia. And today our topic is going to be children in sport. And I'm really excited for this one because I think we've got a few different angles and I'm excited about where it's going to go. So we'll look at how we approach putting our kids in sport and how we approach that from a dysfunctional perspective and dive into that first. And then towards the end of the conversation, we'll look at what we've learned and what we can see from our own experience and hopefully give you some tips on how to change that perspective, perhaps if you are in dysfunction. So, Julie, do you want to start us off with your, perhaps one area or a story, if you have one, about kids in sport and your children and how you've perhaps an example of how you might have approached that in a dysfunctional way?
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody. This is an interesting topic. And firstly, I'd love to say how important sport is for children. I really love my children being involved in sport. It brings so much to the table, even for them and their personalities and what comes up when they win and lose and stuff like that. So it's interesting to see that. But as from a parent, my example is how I pushed one of my child to do sport. And why did I do that? The other two love sport. They do it all the time. And I just thought because sport is so good that I needed to push it onto this one of my children. And I look back at it now and it was because I think, why did I push him to do something that he didn't like? He would literally be, he didn't want to train. He didn't want to go to the actual sporting day, and I didn't realize and I didn't take the time to see why he didn't want to go. It was all about me. You need to play sport, and he'd actually be really good at this one sport. People were saying how well he could go, how far he'd go. So to me, that put this idea in, oh my gosh, my child is going to be really good at sport. And as I think about that, how selfish that is of me, because I'm pushing my child to do a sport to make me look good as a parent. There's a part of me that wanted him to go further, to even say to my parents, hey, look at this. You look how good my kid is. So just dysfunctionally, I was pushing him in to do something purely for my own self-gratification. And I didn't take the time to realize or understand why he didn't want to play it. And then I found out why he didn't want to play. And it was like, why didn't I see that? I was too caught up in what it meant about me.
And I think there is just, as parents, often we think we know better or best for our children. And we do often, right? I think there's definitely a part of us that does have more wisdom. But we have to be very careful, I guess, in bringing our beliefs into it. So are we using our wisdom? And like you said, sport is so good for children. It can really bring out so much. They inspire them. They feel good about themselves. They can get the connections with other kids. They can get so much out of sport. And yet there's an underlying thing that, oh, this is a little bit about me. My kid is going to be successful, and that means I'm a good parent. I see that quite a lot. And there's a really fine balance, I think, in that. It's one part about encouraging, because you do see parents that encourage their children do end up being, the superstar often has a little bit of a pushy parent who's guided them there. You hear those stories all the time. And then where's the balance between, my kid doesn't want to do this anymore, I need to pull back? And I think that's a really hard line to walk. I've seen that in my own experience. It's like, I know this is going to be really good for you, and yet all the pushback that you get, it's not as simple as just listening and saying, I guess we can beat ourselves up. I didn't listen to what they wanted, but it's not that simple. There's also more to it. And yes, recognizing your own dysfunction in it is so important, I think. But then and how you're making it about you, because I've definitely seen that in myself as well. But then I think I can see there's something also about it being, how much do we push? How much do we encourage when they don't want to do something?
So what a point you said is, how do we know it's good for them? That's just an assumption we're putting on our child. We think this is going to be good for you. How do we know that? In my case, that sport wasn't good for him, but him going out on a farm and lifting bales of hay and doing exercise that way or releasing his energy is good for him. So we come in with this perception that, and like you say, it's a fine balance, because we do know there's some things that kids need to push. And that's my point. We think we know, but we really have to take that back seat. I think this is good for you, and it probably would be good for you. But if they're not willing, and it's really not true for them to do that sport, we need to take a step back. That's our dysfunction. We're just assuming that this is going to be good for them.
I think we come in as a society, definitely in Australia, where sport is such a big thing, and success in sport is just seen as top level. If you're successful in sport, you're amazing. And I think you're right. We bring that into each and every one of our children. They all must participate in some sort of sport. They don't have to be successful, but they must participate. And like you say, there's where we are ignoring, I know I've seen myself in the past ignore my own child's wisdom. Yes, there is my wisdom, but there's an acknowledgement that if we make the assumption, which we don't tend to do, but make the assumption that they have their own wisdom and we can connect to that and they know what's best for them.
Absolutely. And we need to understand that they do know what's right for them.
Yeah.
But bringing it back to sport, like you see the parents on the sideline, and some are abusive and some are yelling and some are screaming. Why do you think? I've never been one of those parents. Dysfunctionally, I push my child into a sport, but I've also encouraged my children to have fun, and I'm not screaming on the sidelines, and I'm not, if they're just having a great time, that's all I personally wanted them to have in sport. But I've seen it in my family. If they were not performing, then they were punished. It's like, how do you know that they weren't having an off day? We have off days as parents. We don't 100% contribute to everything we do. So I see parents that dysfunctionally discipline their child because they didn't play to their best. They're on the sidelines, even to the extent of abusing the umpire. They're in their dysfunction and they're trying to live, and I'm assuming here, that they're trying to live through their children.
Well, they're definitely making it mean something about them, like that success. Because in the end, why does it matter if the team wins, if the child is good? Why does any of that matter in the end, as long as the child is having fun? And yet we see parents berate their children, push their children. Even I've seen them bribe with money. I'll give you $50 per goal. And to me, that's, what are we teaching our children in that? Is it encouraging? There's a difference, right? There's encouraging, and then there's putting all this pressure on our children. And what does that pressure do to them in the end? To me, we're building a foundation of you're not good enough, right? The child is never going to be good enough if we're giving them this pressure that they have to keep performing week out, every single game to a certain standard, and they can never fail. They can never get it wrong. What message are we really giving our children when we're doing that? And I think that's the concerning part about, children and parents participating in children's sport, getting so involved and invested. Like you said, I assume it feels as if it means something. If the winning or losing means something about them. Otherwise, often the kids don't even care. One of my sons was in a basketball team, and for years and years and years and years, week in, week out, they lost by over 50 goals. They would just got beaten. If it was me, I probably would have pulled out. But they just kept going, and they kept enjoying. I would have even questioned, are you enjoying this? But they were playing with their mates, they were having fun. It
That's what
meant
it's.
nothing. The winning and the losing meant nothing. It was just about playing.
Yeah.
And I could see the other parents and even myself, as I said, do you want to be losing every week? Why don't we give this up? Like that definitely came into my mind. And the other parents sort of really getting invested and down about the losing. And that only ever then gets passed on to the children. There's no way you can hide that from your child, right? So it's an interesting observation that I've noticed in watching children's sport is that how much the parents seem to get invested in why they make it mean something.
Going on from that, you brought up before, you've even seen, and I've seen it too, parents bribe their child, I'll give you $50 per goal. So what is that teaching their child? So even if I want to do something, to me, it's teaching your child, and it's just an observation as well, but just do it because you'll get the money. Even though you don't enjoy it or you don't want to do it, and it's not really true for you, if I do it, I'll get paid, I'll get the money. Is that teaching them down the track to just go and do a job that they don't like because they're going to get paid? It's bringing up, it's interesting. And
If you look at this flip side, how would the child respond or feel if they didn't get any goals that game? Is that you're immediately a failure? And again, there's nothing wrong with being a failure, but based on, it's not about I tried something because I wanted to do it from my heart, and it didn't work out, versus I disappointed my parents. Very different perspectives on that.
And like you say, you're disappointed. You get the goals. Your child's thinking, great, now I've made mum and dad happy. I've made them proud of me because I've picked that goal.
It makes me, there's a bit of this conversation that I have questioned myself, is like, what is competition a healthy thing? And we see competition in our society as a really healthy competition. It brings out people's best. And I question that sometimes because, yes, on one hand, some healthy competition can bring out some performances that potentially may not have been brought out before. But competition doesn't always bring out the best in us.
No.
And often it doesn't bring out, it actually brings out the worst.
Mm-hmm.
And that idea of winning and losing, and one's obviously very good, one's bad. And this idea that we have to, in order to win at any cost, we're actually harming someone else in the process, or the competition doesn't bring out the kindness, the compassion. It brings out often berating other kids. And I question how healthy it actually really is for children. And I'm sure there's lots of people who can argue against that. And I think it can be argued both ways. But I do think it's worthwhile opening up that can of worms and going, hey, let's have a look at this on a bigger lens. And I'm not necessarily all for people going, everyone's a winner. I'm not a fan of that either, because we're not all winners. Sometimes we fail, and I think it's actually okay to fail. I think it's really important to fail. That builds resilience. It brings in that fighting spirit. But the competition sometimes can be really unhealthy in these kids' sports scenarios.
I see that. I've got in after my children have played a game of sport and got in, and just like the ref was this and the players were useless. So they're coming from a really negative aspect and not actually enjoying the game of sport because they want to win.
Yes.
And on the flip side of that, health competition can be really healthy because driven people do get to where they need to be. So it is building that resilience of losing. I see it in that aspect as well, because life doesn't hand you everything you want. So, and that's why these elite athletes get to where they are. They persevere and they're dedicated and they have a real enjoyment for the sport, obviously, for first and foremost, and love it. So competition can be healthy and it can be unhealthy. It's like any situation in life. There's good, bad, right or wrong. There's always two different sides, two different opinions. But I think today we're trying to connect to or bring that message is, how do you connect with your children in sport? What are you doing dysfunctionally and what are you doing functionally as a parent when it comes to sport?
And I think you bring up the perfect point. It is about being dysfunctional or functional, and just taking a look at how the behavior of yourself and even the child is, in terms of, is it a dysfunctional behavior? Where is it coming from? Is it coming from a sense of lack? I'm not good enough. I need to be better. You need to be better. Or is it coming from functional? We're here to have fun. Yes, winning's great, but losing's okay too. And let's just have some fun. At the end of the game, did you have fun?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why sport is for children so beneficial, because they can learn so much. Because as they go on in life, things are going to come up, people are going to get in their way, people aren't going to do it the way they want. And it's learning and building skills to further them in life.
Absolutely.
So, how do I functionally watch my children in sport? Well, firstly, I'm not allowed to watch my girls because that's embarrassing. So, I don't go into my dysfunctional shit. I'm not good enough. They hate me. They don't want me around, blah. And I just see it functionally as they're teenagers.
Yep.
When they were younger, they definitely wanted me there. But as now, Maddie, as she comes out, she definitely wants me there. And they went through that period where I was embarrassed. No, I'm still embarrassing to my youngest. And I don't want to be sitting there. So I'm not on the sidelines yelling or anything like that, because I'm not allowed to be there. But I don't take that personally. And after the game, we have a great chat about it. And if they get to the finals, I'm allowed to go. No, but I don't sit there and go, oh my God, the child doesn't want me there. If I stay there, I sit in the car and do what I love. I'll do some work. I'll watch some stuff that I need to get done. And I just think it's great. She's out there having fun with their friends, learning new skills. I'm in the car doing what I want to do. So that's how in this present point in my life, that's how I functionally do sport. I'm not allowed near there. So that's kind of easy. But back to when dysfunctionally, when I was pushing my son into sport, once I got an understanding of why he didn't do it and want to do it, it was just like, whoa, it was such a realization for me that it's just not true for him to do it. It just wasn't true for him. He felt he didn't like it. He wasn't enjoying it because he was quite a sturdy kid. They'd all call him big fella, and he took that personally. And they did not mean that they loved it because he was such a strong kid, but he deep down took it personally. And I didn't see. And at the time, he's 11 and 12 when all his beliefs are forming, and I didn't understand that. So, that was such a great learning curve for me. And I never pushed any of them into doing anything they don't want to do. And my sole purpose for my kids to play sport is for them to have fun, to build friendships, learn resilience when you lose, learn how to, when they talk about the players that aren't playing up to their standard, so, well, how can you encourage them to get better? Or what can you do to help these kids become a better player instead of berating them and saying useless? So that's where I am functionally in sport. On the sidelines, in the car park, in the car.
Not even watching. And I think often that is probably far better than someone yelling at the umpire. And
not that I was ever a yeller at the umpire, no, and I know you're not insinuating that, but just my presence there made them feel uncomfortable. I didn't take it personally. And then when I spoke to my eldest about it, it's like, why didn't you want me there? And she goes, I feel the pressure of when people watch me and then I don't play my best. So it wasn't even anything about me. It could have been anyone. She didn't want her grandparents there. She didn't want her dad there. It wasn't about me. It was just like I play better when I don't have that pressure of someone watching me. So me to take that step back and let her be in her environment and thrive, once again, has made a stronger connection with myself and Maddie. But
haven't made it about you, right? It's not about you, right? It's about her and what she wants and what she needs.
And she does really well in her sport. She loves it now. She's still playing it on her own free will, which is great to see. And there was never any pressure from me after I learned what I was doing.
My kids are still letting me go.
Lucky you. Sometimes I used to think, oh my goodness, once again, when I started making it about me, well, I'm paying for your shirt and your shorts and your footy boots and this and that, and you won't let me go. But I've said I'll let that go. So I'm glad you can still go. There's lots of things that can still go.
Yes.
Even functionally, I don't look at those parents and feel like, oh, wish my daughter would let me do that. I just know it's right for me not to be there, and it's okay. It doesn't mean anything.
That's right. And it could change at any time, right?
It has, because now
Yeah.
I got into the Queensland Touch finals or whatever. She's representing Queensland. She's representing, but anyway, she asked me to come along and watch. So that was, so you knew they needed to be in that time, come full circle, and now she's back to wanting me to watch, not the youngest. Got a little way to go there.
Yeah. What I find, like I said, I get to go now. Who knows? It could change at any time, but at the moment I get to go.
So I could, sorry, you're a better parent than me, hey? Because you get dysfunctionally. Sorry.
And I think I'm getting better at, well, I definitely don't yell at the umpire. Or there was one time when my son played footy, there was a big brawl and the umpire didn't do anything. I did yell at them. And it felt so horrible when I did. It really, I felt sick. But anyway, that's a different story. No one's perfect.
You're not perfect here.
But I try not to get myself attached to the game. And I do find that quite challenging, because especially if it's a close game or if it's a final, I find myself, oh, they have to win. And I can feel the tension in my whole body. So just being aware of that tension in my body actually has been really helpful for me to go, oh, I can feel really tense. Why do I care so much?
We're not the Olympics
that much. It's just a game. But just noticing that tension in my body in particular, and sort of that feeling of, oh, they have to win, or this goal's important, and I personally don't like that feeling in my body. It's a signal that I'm not grounded and calm. And so that's because I see that as me being dysfunctional in my dysfunction. And again, getting invested in something that really means nothing to me. It's important for her, but it's not about me. And what I do find a challenge is when they come off the court or off the ground, and like you said before, they start going, I wish this was the case, and that person. And again, is taking that observer perspective and just being with their, not validating in the sense that you feel upset about that, but not getting caught up in the drama of it either. And allowing them to see how they're reacting to the situation, rather than doing it from a place, rather than seeing a bigger picture, maybe in a sense helping them reflect, hey, how about last week when you felt crappy and you didn't feel like you played your best? Everyone has those days.
This is where sport is such a good learning.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, it's a tool.
It is. And it's building that resilience, because whenever we go for something in life that we really love or want, it's not an easy step. We have to keep persevering and putting after the next foot and dealing with people and situations. And that's why I love sport, because it's such a good learning.
It's a playground for learning.
And it's a playground for us to realize when we're in our functioning properly as a parent. Why does anything mean anything? It's like I said, we're not at the Olympics. Watching teenagers have a game of sport, or they even start under 6. It's interesting.
Let them have fun and be kids.
Take anything, all the personal meaning out of you being a parent, how it reflects on you.
So do you have a final tip or a couple of pointers for our audience? Anything?
For me, I've already spoken about what I've done is I've let them have the space that they wanted to play their own game, their own sport, without the pressure of me watching, and I didn't take it personally. Now, knowing what I've known when I've pushed my children into sport, I would really take the time to say, is this something you want to do? Are you committed? Because once you join a team, you need to be committed, because it's a team game and you don't just drop out and go when you don't want to. Find out genuinely if they want to do it, because generally they might not want to do it, and that's okay. And if they're just, for me, if they join a team sport and they're just feeling lazy, that's when I do push. You signed up, you love this. When you get out there and you play, you have a great time, and it's a team effort. So I've always encouraged that too for when they do sign up, because people are relying on you. And that's life. You've got to show up even when you don't want to show up. So that's the main 2 takeaways I've taken out of sport, and not making anything personal, because if they go on to be the next Pat Rafter in tennis, it doesn't mean anything about me. I was just there guiding them. They're the ones that put the effort in and went every day, and it was them. We're there to assist them. But and if they throw the tennis racket on the field and have a big hissy fit, that's nothing about me. I'm not getting that racket and holding it down and throwing it on the field. So you're just taking the meaning out of about me and just enjoying sport and learning from it. Because I've already mentioned there's so many positives to take out of sport. What about you?
That's probably the biggest one for me, is the noticing when it's about you. Are you making it about you or the child? And when you start to get really invested, it's probably that you're making it about, I need this to happen because of something that makes me feel good, or makes me look good, or whatever it is. So just noticing that when you're getting over invested, what does that really mean underneath? Yeah. And the other one for me was the tension in my body. It's actually a physical sign that this isn't right. I'm not in my calm state. And I think it's not about always having to be in that calm state, but it's a sign that, again, if I'm doing that while I'm watching children's sport, again, an awareness of, why am I so invested in this? What am I making this mean? What's the meaning I'm giving to it? Because in the end, it's about them and them having fun, making connections, all the wonderful benefits that sport does bring. And then we can come in and ruin that, in a sense, when we add all of our flavor to it. So
going forward, watch your kids play sport. And just for me, it's taking the enjoyment out of watching them having a fulfilling game sport, or an enjoyment, or even just the learning that they can get from the game. So that going forward, that's what I would go out and just enjoy them, watch and play.
For me, it's even about just let them enjoy it. Give them the permission just to have fun.
Absolutely.
Nice. Well, it's been a good conversation. I've really enjoyed it myself.
It's interesting what comes up. I hope our listeners can take something from that. Even just a little small snippet of when you go to watch your sport, what is coming up for you? What emotions are there? What am I feeling in my body? What am I making this mean about me and my child?
Thanks so much, Julie. Thanks everyone for listening. See you next time.